Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, they're getting ingenious about stealing your money, the big scams, how to protect yourself. But first, it's an important subject, state police funding and more.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
All right, joining me to talk about state police funding and more are two journalists who are frequent guests on the program, Angela Couloumbis with Spotlight PA and Tom Lehman, the Capitol reporter with WGAL News 8. All right, Tom, no one debates the need for funding the state police, correct? That's not the issue. The issue is, where does the money come from? And who else competes for that money? I think, is that a safe way to put it?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the issue that has been sort of a focus of one hearing this week at the Capitol, but it's also something that Governor Josh Shapiro said he really wants to address. Right now, most of state police's funding is coming out of the general fund budget, but a lot of that money that it gets for its budget comes from the motor license fund. It comes from money that would otherwise be used for road and bridge projects. Shapiro has said, I want to start weaning state police off of that fund. I want to gradually get them down to no money out of the motor license fund. And we've seen a little bit of, I would say, synergy perhaps from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle about doing that. I think there are still a lot of questions, though, about exactly what the long-term ramifications might look like.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, again, it's not the question of funding. And make no mistake about it, obviously we need the state police. They need to be adequately funded. But also, roads and bridges have been a big issue for a long, long time. And Pennsylvania is a large state. It's complex. We got it's big, but we have myriad problems given the nature of the topography and other.
That's right. And actually, back in 2013, under former Governor Corbett, there was a hike in the gas tax so that they could raise more money for these projects. And the legislature, which has, up until this term, both chambers had been run by Republicans, they recognized the need that they needed to stop relying on the motor vehicle fund to fund state police. And back in 2016, they actually passed a cap on how much money they could draw out of it. But they've had trouble since then actually lowering it below the $500 million that now comes out of that fund every year for the state police. So I think that, as Tom said, there's going to be some synergy on it. It's just going to be a question of how they're going to accomplish it and over what period of time.
You know, I would just add the other thing that Governor Shapiro has said he wants to do is we're going to fund state police. They're not going to lose money out of this. It's not going to be a net loss. They're just not going to get that money from money that would otherwise go to PennDOT.
And that just makes a lot of sense when you think about it, to have an independent source of funding that's consistent, perhaps just out of the state, out of the general fund. Talking about the general fund, legislature comes back, what, April 17th? Do I got that correct?
I believe it's the week after that, April 24th.
24th. Wow, go ahead.
Well, it's nice to be in the state legislature, longer breaks. But yes, they're going to have to work out that issue, and it's going to come down to, I mean, Pennsylvania and the legislature historically has been averse to raising new revenue, and there's always a fight over that. It's not necessarily an issue in play this year, but I think if they're going to start finding permanent solutions to things like state police funding, there's going to have to be a discussion about that.
And it's a good time to do it because at least this year there's a sizable surplus. So if you want to try to do it now, there's a big debate about out years, you know, future years, whether we're going to have budget problems. But right now, it would seem the appropriate time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the state has billions in reserves, both from COVID relief dollars and just where the state is on its financial footing right now. Governor Shapiro has suggested let's start ramping up some of that spending. Let's start working on some of these things that we keep talking about. But you're already seeing a lot of pushback from Republicans, particularly over on the Senate, who have said, we think in the long term, the out years, we're looking at less stable financial footing. And if we start spending all of that money, we're going to find ourselves in a position where we're going to have to make difficult decisions down the line.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. All right, let's run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about abortion. It's been in the news. It's a big issue in Pennsylvania. The voters in our state have strong feelings about it. We'll get to that and more after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, we're going to talk about abortion, the fallout from the abortion ruling and how it's affecting Pennsylvania. But let's segue right now into Senator Casey. He has said he will seek a fourth term in the United States Senate. He currently is the longest-serving Democratic senator, U.S. senator in Pennsylvania history. It was big news. It got national coverage.
It did. It did because he is a formidable candidate. He's, as some Republicans will even privately tell you, that he's impossible to beat. He has a tremendous amount of experience running statewide elections, and he is able to raise a lot of money. He comes from a political family with a very well-known name in Pennsylvania, and those are all assets that are very difficult if you're on the Republican side to overcome.
Yeah, by the way, his dad was Auditor General of the state of Pennsylvania and twice elected governor of the state of Pennsylvania. And Senator Casey was twice elected Auditor General and once a state treasurer. So when Angela makes a point about coming, he also comes from Scranton, which...
Yes. And he's very closely aligned. His agenda is very closely aligned with President Biden's, right. And I think you're going to hear
He's
that.
also from Scranton.
Who's also from Scranton. They have that in common as well, and you're going to hear a lot about that agenda during the campaign. Yeah,
it looks like the Republicans, you know, there's going to be a contest, I suspect, to oppose him the way it looks.
Right, and I think Casey announcing he's running for re-election, that's really the first domino to fall here. And now we're looking at a potential Republican field. It includes some familiar names potentially. Dave McCormick has been highly linked to this race. We know that he ran that unsuccessful campaign for the GOP nomination for U.S. Senate.
Narrowly lost.
Yes, they're very narrowly lost in a contested primary with multiple candidates. The other candidate that's been mentioned potentially is Doug Mastriano, the GOP nominee for governor last year, who lost pretty handedly to Governor Josh Shapiro. But
15 points.
And you know, there's questions about whether he can win a statewide race based off of that performance. At the same time, regardless of who ends up being the nominee, they've got to get through that primary process. And some wonder whether Mastriano could get through that over Dave McCormick.
And it looks like Dave McCormick is a former hedge fund CEO, and he, you know, his dad was president of Bloomsburg College and the first chancellor of the state system. All right, we have about a minute and a half left. Let's talk about abortion.
Right, so there's been a lot of coverage about a federal ruling out of Texas that basically put a halt on the availability of medication abortion. And right now in Pennsylvania, what you are seeing is Governor Shapiro coming out and saying that medication abortion remains legal in this state for a variety of reasons. Number one, that federal ruling is on hold. And number two, there was a separate federal ruling out of the state of Washington that basically allows the 17 states that have sued over this to that the drug remains available in those states, and Pennsylvania is one of them.
Right. And the fact of the matter is, under the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, Pennsylvania has basically what it said is now up to the states to determine whether they permit abortion or not. And Pennsylvania does have the Abortion Control Act, which does permit an abortion. Now, there are conditions and terms to that. Go ahead.
Sure. And Shapiro yesterday said, listen, I'm not going to allow any restrictions on abortion. I'm going to be the backstop, just like Governor Wolf was. I'm going to prevent any attempts to restrict it in Pennsylvania from moving forward. One interesting wrinkle, though, he noted yesterday is that unlike other Democratic governors, he cannot stockpile the drug in question because of state law. So even though he can block and veto legislation, there are some limitations to what he can do.
In other words, it's a little complicated. All right, thanks for the update. All right, coming up, how to protect yourself. The scammers, they're after your money.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by
Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
All right, as I promoted this topic, the big scams, how to protect yourself, joining me to do that is Brian Roche. He's the anchor consumer investigator with WGAL TV News 8. All right, Brian, you're the consumer investigator. You spend a good deal of your professional life getting into all these scams. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, all these scams. The one that struck me, that just from the title, if I can, the heading, glue and tap. What is glue and tap?
Got your attention, didn't it?
It really did.
And it should get your attention. This is a growing ATM scam across the country. We've seen this in big cities so far, like Chicago, San Francisco, New York City. So the glue part, the scammer takes glue and sticks it into the slot where your credit card goes in, your ATM card. So when you try to put the card in there, you can't put it in. So the next alternative is to tap your card with that the chip that's on there, the RFID, so you tap it. So you tap it, you open your account, and you withdraw the money. However, when you do that, you're essentially logging into your bank account.
Oh, my.
And what a lot of people don't realize is they need to log out. So you get your money, your typical ATM transaction comes out of the slot, you grab it, you grab the receipt, you walk away. If you haven't logged off, there's people standing nearby, usually, again, on a busy street in a big city. They see that you haven't logged off. So essentially, your account is wide open, and they can walk over there and get whatever they want. It's just like dropping your wallet in the middle of the street. So that's the glue and the tap.
If I cannot get my card in, I go to someplace else. I don't fool around.
That's a wise idea.
with any of that. And this is... How big is this?
Well, it's actually just, I'm just learning about it. It's actually kind of new in the last couple of months. I have not heard of it happening anywhere in Pennsylvania, but as my experience is, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. Most of our ATMs here are still the chip kind where you slide it right in there. And not many of them that I have seen, in fact, none of them that I've seen will do the tap just yet, but eventually that will be coming. So I always try to get people ahead of the curve and let them know.
Would your advice be don't do
My advice is to do what you just did. If it doesn't work, walk away. Go somewhere else.
Go somewhere else. Good point. All right. Voice duplication scams.
Yeah, this is very concerning. We're hearing a lot about artificial intelligence these days. Artificial intelligence has been in development for years and years. You know, robots, the whole 9 yards, but it has really accelerated in the last few years. Now, the scam that we're really concerned about is using artificial intelligence, voice duplication. Scammers are going onto social media sites, and they're getting the voices of young people. Young people, you know, we always do something on, well, I'm not a young person, but the young people, they'll do something on Instagram or what have you, and the scammers copy their voices, and they duplicate the voice through artificial intelligence. They're using that voice duplication then to call grandparents and tell them your grandchild is in trouble with the law. I'm an attorney, and you need to send me $10,000 to bail them out.
Gosh.
And the grandparent is hearing the voice that they recognize as their grandchild because it is their actual voice that has been taken from social media. So scammers are using artificial intelligence to recreate the voices, the actual voices of their grandchildren, to call the grandparents and try to get the money out of them. This has escalated this scam. The grandparent scam has been around for a decade or so now.
Wow.
But this has escalated it to a whole new level, making it entirely believable that grandparents are going to fall for this.
How do you protect yourself? I think I know, but go ahead.
Well, the best advice here is, first of all, a grandparent is going to get this call. They're going to become extremely emotional. They're going, oh my gosh, my grandchild. Sure. The best thing to do is remain calm and find a way to contact either the grandchild themselves or contact the grandchild's parents and say, where is Johnny? Where is Mary? Are they in Mexico? Because it's possible that they are in jail. So you need to control your emotions and try to make that phone call. But again, if you know that your grandchild's not in Mexico or in Arizona or wherever they're claiming to be, you know it's a scam.
Is this new or relatively old?
The scam itself, the grandparent scam, is relatively old, but this level that we're talking about here with the artificial voice, new twist on this.
Yeah. Well, look, let's run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about cable bills. Cable's pretty common. How else do we watch TV? We'll be back.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, I'm talking with Brian Roche. He's the Consumer Investigator with WGAL News 8. We're talking about how you're being ripped off or how you potentially can get ripped off by scams. All right, let's talk about cable bill scams.
This is a scam. We all hate our cable bill. Nothing against the cable company, but we all hate our cable bill. It always seems to be escalating and escalating and escalating, and everyone wants to find a way to reduce it. What the scammers are doing now is they're calling people saying, hi, I'm with your cable company. And if you right now pay 6 months in advance, I can cut your rate by 50%. And so even with a 50% reduction in your cable bill for 6 months, it's probably still going to be somewhere between $500 and $1,000. So they want you to send that money in advance under the belief that you're actually going to cut your cable bill. The scammer has nothing to do with your cable company. Yeah. They have nothing at all to do with.
And the cable companies are not likely to make a call. Wouldn't they send you send you a
They'll
letter?
send you an email or a letter or however you signed up to talk with them or negotiate with them or get your bills. But again, it's emotion. Who doesn't get excited about, oh, I want to cut my cable bill in half? Of course I do. Sure, I'll send you the money, and now I won't have to worry about this for at least 6 more months. But this is predominantly targeting Comcast customers, and Comcast customers, of course, want to see a reduction in their bill.
Sure. I mean, I think when you get an email, when you get a text message, I delete them immediately, and I will go to the company. I will call the company or the bank or whatever the situation is to find out from them what situation is that,
Exactly. And, let's dwell on that for a second, because I'm professing more and more often to consumers, it's okay. It's okay to be skeptical. It's okay to not believe what you're being told. So many of us, look at you and I are older. We grew up and we were taught to be polite. And so many consumers are polite. They're like, okay, well, I'll believe what I'm being told. And they end up losing money. I'm trying to profess to people more often, it's okay to be skeptical. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to doubt what you're being told, especially in this electronic age of email and these phone calls.
That's a great point, yeah. I got a call last week, and I won't name the company, but the guy obviously was heading to selling me something. And I said, look, no thank you, I'm not interested, have a great day, and hung up. I have no clue whether it was, it obviously now does affect businesses that are trying to use the telephone to promote their, legitimately promote their business.
And telephones are the #1 weapon, one of the 2 weapons, I should say, that scammers use. You have, and we talked about this before here on the show, you have the 2 weapons that they use the most. They're in your possession right now. One is your phone,
right,
and the other one's your computer.
Yeah.
And those are the 2 weapons they use the most. And I remember you and I talked recently about how text messages are now more predominant than robocalls in this country. Last year, text messages outnumbered robocalls 3 to 1.
How about antivirus renewal scams?
This is the scam that you get. Most often this comes in the form of an email. Occasionally it will come in the form of a text message, and very rarely in the form of a phone call. Terry, your antivirus is being renewed. We've already charged your account for $400 or $499. If you want to dispute this, call us back. And of course you want to dispute it. You don't want to lose $500 that you didn't sign up for. But what happens here is when they get you on the phone, they claim they're going to give you a refund directly through your bank account or your credit card.
But they need the credit card number and the bank account?
Well, no, what they want to do is get you on your computer. They want to get right into your computer, and then when they're in there and they take it over, you see them moving things around. You're not controlling it. They manipulate the numbers so that instead of you getting a $499 refund, oops, I made a mistake. I gave you $49,000, and you need to send that money back to me now. And that's how that scam works. It's under the guise of giving you a refund, but it's actually putting fake money. They manipulate those numbers, and then they try to get you to believe it and send them back. I just recently did a story with a man who nearly lost $39,000, but he did what you were talking about before. He hung up. And he went to the bank, and the bank said,
yeah,
no.
I'm going to go to this, go to the source, you know, the credit card company, the bank, or whatever company or business it is, and make the inquiry myself.
If you have the slightest doubt in a situation like that, go to your bank. Hang up the phone and go to your bank. Again, we've talked about this before. Computer companies don't know that you've got a problem with your computer. So anyone calling you and claiming, this is Microsoft, or sending you an email, this is Microsoft, we've discovered a problem on your computer, they're lying to you. They don't know that.
Now, what's the status with legal authorities in prosecuting these people, or is it that difficult?
It is difficult. People ask me that question all the time, but there are arrests. Quick story, we just recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago, the FBI was part of an international operation called Operation Cookie Monster. It's a catchy title, but it involves 17 different countries, and they arrested almost 140 people who were running scams that hijacked people's computers to run the kind of scams that we're talking about. So yes, they do get prosecuted. The problem is the international boundaries. The FBI has got to work really hard with extradition treaties and things like that.
All right, thank you. I'll tell you, we'll have you back because it's not ending.
Keeps me in business, Terry.
There you go. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, you stay well.